Welcome back to the Just Build Baby Studio. I'm your host, Buzz Artiano. Today we're excited to have our guest, Carlos Ramos, here today from Good Deeds House Cleanouts out of Pembroke, Mass. Welcome, Carlos.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So I know we met, that was probably about a month ago, at an ADU seminar put on by the town of Plymouth. And I was super intrigued to find out more about your company, and I didn't have time to spend any time with you. I said this is a perfect opportunity to bring you in and get it all for the whole public to see, right?
That's wonderful.
So if you wouldn't mind, just tell us about yourself personally.
Sure.
How you got to this position. You're the manager of the house Good Deeds, and then we'll get into what Good Deeds does.
Gotcha. So I kind of got into this almost accidentally, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I had been living in Boston for a little while. I'm a musician, actually.
Really? What do you play?
I play guitar, I sing, play bass.
All right.
Do the whole.
Might have to have you in for a jam session.
Yeah, man. And I was working at a studio, a voiceover recording studio. They did a lot of corporate work. The hours were nice. They were daytime, 9 to 5. But much like this room, I spent my entire working day in 4 walls without seeing sunlight and kind of doing the same thing over and over again and listening to the same stuff. So it got to the point where I needed to change.
Yeah.
One of the owners, who at that point, I don't know if he was an owner at that point, but he had been working for a company, Cleanout Your House, Inc., right? And he'd always joked, he was like, dude, you got to come work for me. Come work for me. Come work for us. And I was like, nah, I'm doing my thing. But it got to the point where I was like, you know what? If you're serious, I'll come. I needed a shift. I needed a change. I actually left a salaried, pretty good deal because I just was burned out on that whole thing.
Yeah. When you're done, you're done.
So started laboring on the trucks. That was almost over 10 years ago. Just started out just like a regular crewman, going into homes, doing the whole thing, and over time just kind of got better at it and acquired more knowledge. I have a trait where it's like I see things that need improvement and I just kind of end up doing them, and it just kind of led to the progression of now being manager for Good Deeds House Cleanouts.
Okay. And so tell us about the history of Good Deeds, how it got started,
Sure.
what the mission is, what you do.
Absolutely. It's kind of a two-part. So I mentioned Cleanout Your House, Inc. They're actually the company that I worked for that ended up purchasing Good Deeds.
Okay.
Right. The founder of Good Deeds, this woman, Janet LaBerge, she had started the company, I think, over 15 years ago.
Wow, okay.
And she was really into like social work. I believe she was a social worker at some point. So she started the service with just like a couple trucks and out of her house. But then she saw that there was a lot of still really good usable furniture.
Sure.
Right? She literally would have sales out of her front lawn. That's how it all started.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So she'd go clean out a house, bring it back to her house, stick it out front, have a giant yard sale.
Have a yard sale.
Yeah.
To the point where it grew, to the point where, she was like, well, I think I could actually do a storefront.
Sure.
So she opened the thrift store aspect of it.
And that was located in Pembroke?
It's in Pembroke, yep.
Okay, so that still exists?
It still exists.
Okay.
That's where we operate everything, the cleanouts and the thrift store. It's all one building.
Okay.
Everything gets sorted and processed there. So, but, after some time, she was looking to retire. So, Clean Out Your House started talking with her, and in 2019, they made a deal, and that's how the whole thing happened. Clean Out Your House started over 20 years ago, and it was actually Larry DeRoche is one of the owners, the principal owner, who retired from the telephone company, and in his retirement in his 50s decided to kind of get into this whole clean-out thing, which at that point was a little bit, it wasn't as...
Yeah, it was newer.
It was newer at that point. And same thing, they started with just like a truck and a couple guys out in a warehouse in Acton, and kind of grew over time. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so tell us about the storefront and Good Deeds and what's in that store,
Sure.
what can people find?
Yeah.
How does that all work?
So, Good Deeds located in Pembroke, right in the Pembroke-Marshfield line. It's got 2 floors, and it's got everything you can imagine as far as household stuff is concerned. We really make a big effort to filter through all of the still usable items that we get from cleanouts.
Okay.
Not just, it's everything from furniture to dishware, household goods, tools, knickknacks, artwork, lamps. Anything that's still usable gets put into
Okay,
the
no
store.
clothing.
No clothing. We donate the clothing that we do get.
Okay, so that goes to like a Savers
like
or
a
something?
Savers or
Goodwill or
Salvation
whatever,
Yep. Just because it's a little too cumbersome
Sure.
and we don't have the space.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you need a lot of room for clothes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, our mission is to try to reduce as much waste as possible. And I think, I'm pretty proud of the fact that we live up to that promise, which is kind of what separates us from the other junk companies or removal services, in my opinion.
Sure.
We
Because a lot of them just come, put it all in a dumpster and drive away.
That's it, and we really do take the time to sort everything. The cleanout staff will load everything into the store area. There's different areas where things get sorted. Big furniture gets put on the floor, and then we bring what we call the smalls to the second floor, and the store staff is then the one that oversees getting all that stuff unpacked.
So this is an active place.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. I have 2 crews on the road every single day, Monday through
Really?
Friday. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so this is a lot more a thriving business more than people realize, these cleanouts.
It's a lot. Good Deeds has 2 crews out every day, and Clean Out Your House has between 3 and 4 crews out every single day.
And they're working like the Acton area, that area?
They're more Acton, Boston, North, and kind
Okay.
of West.
And so you're taking South, Boston South down to the Cape. Are you going on
Yep.
the Cape as well?
All the way to the Cape. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So if I'm in Provincetown, you're gonna come to Provincetown?
Yeah.
It's 85 miles one
take
way.
a nice little ride, over the bridge, soak in some sun.
It's 85 miles, one way from here.
Hey,
So let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
So obviously we're going to put your contact information, but
Yeah.
we get in contact with you, phone call, email, whatever that looks like. So I call you up and tell me what happens next. Take me through the process.
I will ask you a variety of questions of what your needs are.
Such as?
Are you calling because you need an entire house clean out? Are you, sometimes customers call us and they're not even aware of the fact that we can take care of doing everything. We kind of created this as a one-stop solution for whatever the customer may need. They often think of the store first, so they think of the donatable stuff.
Got it?
They don't think of the junk aspect or the
Okay.
things that need to be, trashed,
Disposed of.
Disposed of. So,
So you'll handle it start to finish.
start to finish.
Here's the house. Get it going.
And, and everything in between.
Okay.
A customer sometimes will call because they've already taken the time to go through everything in the house
That they
after
want to inherit
that
or
they want to keep or
Yeah,
whatever after a family member is passing or something like that.
Now, that's the majority of the situation, is someone's either downsizing or passed away?
I would say that that's kind of like 80%.
Okay.
Um,
And so, but you'll, like, if they have a big detached barn they haven't messed with for years, and they're tired of looking at it, and they really want to redo that space, you'll just do the barn?
Yep.
It doesn't have to be the house?
Yep. Oftentimes what I'll say is the best thing to do is for one of us to come out, take a look in person. We'll meet, we'll do an estimate, they'll walk us through, and that way we can determine what the best option is for them.
All right, well, let me take you back. So we have a phone call.
Yep.
You talk about, okay, what are your goals, what's your dream, what's your vision?
Yep.
Then what from there? Now you're going to schedule a site visit?
Yes.
So you always come look?
For larger projects, that's usually the best approach.
Yeah.
Another way that we do a lot of like what I call our mid-size or small-size jobs is for the customer to email back pictures of what they're
Okay,
looking to
and
get
are you
rid of.
doing any like FaceTime things with customers? Or?
It's mostly over the phone, through email. I will always send the customer all of our information and pricing through email after a phone call.
Okay.
And then they have the option of wanting to schedule an in-person estimate or sending pictures of everything.
Okay, so they have a way, you have ways of getting it without scheduling. So if the executor is out of state and the house is wherever, and if they have the good photos, they can send you the good photos.
Yep.
And then you can say, okay, this is what it's gonna take to do this job.
Yeah, we try to make it as easy for people. Oftentimes, if they have a realtor they're working with that has the keys and access, if they're out of state,
Okay.
we'll coordinate to just get in and take a look.
So you'll go with the realtor, do your thing, send them the proposal.
Exactly.
And get on the phone with them and say, you know, what do you want to do with this piece? What do you want to do with that piece?
Yep.
Hey, we found this, that, and the other thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So you come to the house, we're walking through, let's pretend it's in person, I'm there with you.
Sure.
Are you giving me a price right there on the spot, or you have to go back and make a proposal? How does that work?
For me personally, 9 out of 10 times, I like to go back and revise everything to put together in my mind what I think the best approach is and the most cost effective, depending on what their needs are and how they want to work. Some customers want to do it in phases.
Interesting.
Some customers want to do it all at once.
Now, what would be the phased approach? What does that look like?
So what happens is that, for example, they're elderly, they're getting ready to sell the house, and they're going to move into an independent living kind of a facility.
Yeah.
And they need more time to kind of sort through.
Okay. So you
Right.
get the big stuff out of the way.
Or whatever areas of the house they deem are ready
they
to
say,
go.
okay, I'm done with this room.
But we need more time on this.
Yeah, okay.
Or oftentimes what happens too is that we're going to do all of these, get this stuff cleaned out, all this stuff's ready to go. We're going to leave some furniture for staging,
Okay.
and then we'll call you after the house sells.
Got it.
And you can come grab the rest of the stuff.
So you're very flexible in that scenario of what needs to happen to make that deal work.
Yep.
It's not one size fits all. This is the only way we do it.
Right.
Take it or leave it.
In fact, one of the hardest questions that I get asked is like, on average, what does a clean out cost? It's impossible to
Yeah.
determine.
How long is a string? Right.
Yeah, it's impossible to determine without knowing exactly what they want.
Right.
Or need.
So you've come you've come to the site work. We've talked about it, or they've sent you pictures, whatever that scenario is, and now you go back and get the proposal. How long after you come and look before I hear from you again?
I usually try to make it 24 hours, 48 hours at most.
Okay, so it's 1 to 2 days.
1 to 2 business
You're going to hear
days.
back from me.
Yeah.
If you come on a Friday, I'm probably not going to hear you on Monday.
Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now I get my proposal. Now, obviously, you charge for every clean out, or is there ever a scenario where there's so much stuff you say, you know what, we're going to take it for free?
So we charge for every clean out.
No matter what.
There are situations where there could be a potential for a buyout. And in all the situations that I've come across so far, there's been an agreed upon value as far as what the buyout, what we're willing to pay them, which ends up just being deducted off of the cost of services
Okay.
rendered.
So the clean out's XYZ, you think you can get XYZ for the contents, you take that off the price of the clean out and say you only owe me the difference.
Right. That's one option. The other option, which is something that we do through our parent company, Clean Out Your House, they have a consignment store, traditional consignment store.
Oh, okay.
Buy and consign, and they actually have 2 locations. They just opened the second one in Framingham, but they have the original one in Waltham. And so if a customer prefers to go that route, and they have certain pieces of furniture, artwork, rugs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, things that are
those kind of
valuable.
Valuable things.
Yeah.
We can offer them the consignment through Buy and Consign in Waltham.
Okay.
Yep.
And they pay you to move it there, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of it's with
Part of
this
the
whole
package.
all-in-one kind
Okay.
of philosophy.
So it's all built in?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So now your crew shows up. Let's pretend it's a full clean out.
Sure.
Average size house. Are you there a day, 2 days? How long are you there for that clean out?
Right. Tends to be about 2 days with the size of my
Really?
crew. Yeah.
Okay.
Like for example, today we're actually out at a job in Situate. It's a big property, 2 floors, basement, garage, shed, everything. I have it scheduled for 2 days. We also can coordinate the dumpster drops if that's something that's required for the job.
Yeah.
But
So
generally
you're
speaking,
disposing of unusable items right there on site, and
Yep.
those are being taken away.
Yep.
And then you're packing up all the good items to take to your store or to the consignment or whatever that deal looks like.
Yep, and or any other items that need to be handled separately. For example, like the mattresses, box springs, electronics, things that need special processing that are charged,
Okay.
that we have to dispose of appropriately. We'll take back, and that all
So you're
gets-
managing that whole process.
Yeah.
This is complete turnkey.
Yep.
Here you go. Take care of it for me. I'm moving on to whatever phase of my life I'm moving on to.
Absolutely. It's always up to the customer too. They can be there. They can just leave us a way to get in. I always tell them it's up to you how you want to play it.
Yeah, because it's obviously there's a lot of emotion involved.
Of course.
Right, and so it's probably easier if they're not there.
In some cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if they've been kind of a hoarder or things like that. Those are tough ones.
Yes.
I've been involved in some of those cleanouts over the years, and
So you know.
yeah, and that can be emotionally challenging for some people, and I get it.
Yeah.
Right, they get attached to their stuff.
Right.
So so how would they? What does that contract look like? So now we have a price. You send me a proposal.
Yep.
Am I signing off on that like DocuSign, doing a credit card? Like, what does that look like?
We're actually pretty informal with that. It's literally just an email communication. I send the proposal through email, and a reply of confirmation suffices as far as the contract goes for us.
And then what about payments? How
There's
does that
no
work?
deposit required.
Okay.
We do the job, and after the job is done, we tally everything, because it's the pricing structure. It's all based on an hourly labor rate.
Oh, okay. So it may be a
stuff
little
that
less,
we
maybe a little more. So you give people a range then.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And how many dumpsters leave? What the weight of the dumpsters were?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
But if I say to you, I want this house broom clean, I'm going to get it that way.
Yeah. We broom sweep everything. Once we're done.
Okay. And if I say I want all the window shades down, I want all the curtains down, I want this thing stripped down.
Yep. We take
get
care
rid of all the old appliances. I want you to get rid of all that stuff. You'll do all that.
We will do all of that. The only thing that we need, I think, technically, any gas.
Yeah, you need a plumber to disconnect.
As long as it's disconnected, we'll take it.
Okay. And are you trying to recycle what you can? Like if you have a bunch of metal, will that go in a metal only dumpster?
Yep. We recycle metal and paper.
Paper, interesting.
Yep. We separate out what's considered regular rubbish.
Sure.
And then, like I said, there's those special items that we send to different centers for recycling that there's a charge for, such as mattresses, box springs, electronics, batteries, etc.
Right.
And it's not something that we always encourage customers to find if they have an alternative way of disposing of it, but we can handle it for them: paints, chemicals, that kind of thing.
Okay. So if they've got an old house and they've got old rat poison or whatever, some kind of pesticide that's illegal now, they can say to you, hey, deal with it. You can get the licensed person to come take it, and it's going to be disposed of properly rather than pouring it down the drain.
Yep, we process that.
Okay.
So.
Interesting. And what about old medications and stuff like that?
We don't really have a process for that, so that's something that I usually
So that
say.
goes back on them. They need to take that to the police station or wherever that goes.
Exactly.
And get that handled with.
Same thing with firearms.
Sure. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, firearms. That's a good.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've discovered a few taped to the bottom of drawers and stuff like that, right?
There's been fragments of guns here and there.
Yeah.
But, I don't think we've found full pieces.
Really? Yeah, I've had a few fall out of walls over the years.
Have you?
Yeah, doing demolition. I had a grenade
sure.
fall out of a wall once.
Wow.
A live grenade. It was a real live grenade. Fell out of
man.
a ceiling when we were doing a demolition.
Jeez.
And a German Luger with it.
Okay.
They both fell on the floor. And I looked at it and said, boy, that's not good. And we called the police. They came.
Yeah.
And that gentleman called the bomb squad, and they came and they took the grenade, and they said it was a live grenade. So. From World War II. So the gentleman that had lived there was a veteran, came back from the war with it was an American grenade and a German Luger, and they took the pistol. I don't know what they did with it.
What did you guys do when it fell? Were you?
It definitely was oh boy, that's not good. But it still had the pin in it, and but the bomb disposal guy said that it probably would still work. But I don't know how they dispose of it, but they took and disposed of it. So, but it's pretty interesting. And then so one thing that I found too on some fire jobs I used to do back when I had my other company, we used to find a lot of money taped to the bottom of things. Do you find that still?
So by the time that we get called, generally all the family or whoever's managing, it's been picked over.
Okay.
Things,
Yeah, because I know my aunt when she lived in her house, when we cleaned out her house, I found money everywhere. It was taped to the bottom of drawers. It was inside the cabinets.
If we
it was
do
in
come
piggy
across,
banks.
yeah, if we do come across it, we always bring it to the customer. We say, hey, we found this, or
Old IDs and wallets and
Yes.
stuff like that. Yeah.
In
Old
fact-
papers, passports.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If customers can even sometimes request, like, hey, can you keep an eye out for X, or
Sure.
can you set aside any family photos that you
Right.
might find?
Yeah.
And that's something that we do as we're going through.
Yeah.
So.
Now I noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, I noticed that there's some point of, obviously Good Deeds is named that for a reason. So there's some type of charity involved in what you do as well?
Yes.
So tell us about that.
At the store, this was part of what Janet had started that we continue the tradition of at the Good Deeds thrift store. Every quarter, we choose a local charity to donate a portion of the proceeds from the store sales.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a really fun thing to do. Some of the organizations we've done recently are Dove, which is a organization to help and women that are victims of domestic violence.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've heard of that
In
one.
Quincy,
Yeah.
we did that a couple quarters ago. Buddy and Friends, which is I think an animal rescue.
Yep.
We did that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and we kind of brainstorm on what charity we'd like to donate to. We try to.
So you move it around.
Yeah, we move it around. We try to find more local,
Sure.
sort of high impact.
Yeah. People making a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then at the end, we always do like a little presentation with the big check and everything.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Pembroke Town News comes and we do a
Yeah.
thing. So, yeah,
That's awesome.
it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the house is now cleaned out. The stuff is at the consignment and/or at your store.
Yeah.
I'm done, right? I'm the homeowner. I'm done.
Yep.
I'm just waiting to see when my stuff is going to sell and a check's going to come in the mail.
If you decided to consign.
Yeah, if I'm consigning, or I haven't consigned anything. I've written you my check or credit card or what. Do you take credit cards?
Yep.
Yeah, so I've given you a credit card or a check, and I'm done. I have no further obligation to any of these items. 100% off my plate.
That's it.
So it's complete turnkey. You quarterback the whole thing.
That's it.
Okay.
And we try to make it as easy as possible for people.
Yeah, no, that's important, obviously, because, like you said, 80% of the situation, there's some type of life-changing event that's gone on.
Right.
And there's already heightened emotions,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So you don't want to add to that.
Right.
Right. Now, what separates you from the average clean-out company?
Well, I think the level of attention and care that we take with our customers, I think, is something that I always get feedback on from our customers, which is something I think, really nice to hear. I tell my guys that even though it's a labor job, it's really customer service.
Sure.
Because of also what you just said. A lot of the people that are going through this, it's a life-changing experience.
Yeah, they didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, I want to clean out my house and throw away 40 years worth of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, we're attentive to the customer's needs and also what I was saying before about how I think that, we make a great effort to try to repurpose and keep as much out of trash as possible.
Sure.
I think those are the two big things that separate us from the competition, from other removal services, particularly the bigger ones. We are still a very small business in comparison to like...
Sure, 1-800-JUNK or whatever, right?
Exactly. So.
Yeah, but you're not going to get that level of service. I mean, from what I've seen from those companies, they just show up with a dumpster and everything goes in the dumpster and that's the end of it.
That's pretty much it.
And if they find anything of value, it probably goes in the pocket of the guy driving the truck and that's the end of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a completely different experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So if they're really looking for a personalized, people that care, they need to call you guys, get you involved, get you in. Now, let's talk about that. So do you want to be in real early in the beginning stages, or you want to get involved like, okay, we're finally ready to do this? Like, will you go look, right away, say someone's passed away? I'm not saying right away, but within the first month,
Sure.
even though they, going to tell you, hey, we're probably not going to do anything for 3 to 5 months because we've got to sell the estate, we've got to, this is going to Susie and this is going to Mary, and we've got to dispose of what's been already allocated to family members.
Yeah.
But we want you to come look early because we want to know what it's going to take. Do you prefer that, or do you prefer just coming in when kind of all that's settled?
So I prefer to come in when all that's settled, but having said that, this is where kind of like the attentiveness to customers comes into play on my part. Sometimes people need a little bit of more hand-holding than others. It's the first time they're going through something like this, emotions are running high, and there's often times that I'll go out at first because they don't know. They have no idea.
Yeah, they don't know where to start. Yep.
So I'll go out and do a preliminary thing, and I'll realize that, and I'll explain it to them while I'm there. I think it's too early to kind of give you a reasonable estimate because there's still a lot of aspects that you need to figure out, which they weren't even necessarily thinking of.
So you're coaching them?
In some cases, yeah.
Sure.
And then once they've kind of gone through the process, I'll go back out, take a look at what's left, because that's usually the best time the time to really determine what to do.
Yeah.
Once they've had a clear picture of what it is that they need to get rid of, what they're keeping, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, but again, it depends on the customer.
Right.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, if they have any questions, just call you.
That's it.
You're going to talk to them on the phone, say, where are you in the process? What is your outcome? What are you trying to do?
Yep.
Does it make sense for me to come look, or send you pictures or whatever? And then you can kind of coach them through that process.
Yeah. I actually just talked to a customer today. We did a small pickup for them a few months ago, but now they're getting ready to clean out the basement, the attic, and the garage. And they had already got their own dumpster, but I needed to talk to them first to kind of figure out what it is that they wanted to do. They had a lot of questions as to, would you be willing to actually handle the stuff and just clear it out and then use the dumpster that we have? And so it's that kind of a thing. You want to talk.
So you're flexible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so we've gone through that whole process, hands off, and things go into the store. So tell me about the store. So they come in the store, they get sorted, cleaned.
Yep.
Maybe something that thought was going to be salvageable is broken or whatever, that just, gets recycled.
Right.
Metal goes in a metal dumpster or whatever that is. But things that make it to the floor, right? How is the pricing set on those things?
It's hard with the second-hand stuff. It's very difficult to kind of come up with a system, but we have general systems for certain things. Like for the pricing of things, as far as the smalls categories go, we've created a general guideline. Cups are generally between 1 and 3 mugs, this type of thing. So we try to set up certain parameters through which the staff can kind of fall in.
Okay.
There's always going to be room for exceptions, because maybe it's I don't know, I'm not very good at this, but maybe it's a desirable brand of something that could, require a bit of a cost.
So there's somebody looking at every one of these pieces and putting a price on them.
Yeah. So
Wow.
the
So there's a lot of labor involved.
There's a lot of work. Yeah.
And then you put it on the shelf and then hope somebody comes by it.
Yep.
Now, how long will you keep it on the shelf before you're like, you know what, no one's ever going to buy this thing?
So it really depends on how much volume we're bringing in, how much room we need to make,
Okay, so the inventory's turning over pretty quickly.
It is, especially with the furniture,
Interesting.
We have a little more flexibility with the smalls areas upstairs, but furniture, there's just limited space, so we have to turn it over pretty quickly.
Got it. And so somebody comes in and you have a price on it at $200. I mean, and if they say, you know what, it's a little more beat up than I like, will you take $150? Does some of that go on in the store?
Sometimes. We have a lot of regulars, which is good,
Interesting.
We have a lot of people that come, so talking about the demographic for the store for a second.
Sure.
We have a lot of resellers, a lot of people that like to buy stuff and refinish it.
Okay.
Which is cool.
So they're buying, so you've already recycled it, they're buying and refurbishing it and then recycling it again.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Very, very cool
and they're
thing.
making a living off of that.
Yep. Absolutely. Or a side
side hustle.
Or whatever,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that, and we have several regulars that come in, and so there's a bit of negotiating that can happen because they're always in there every week. And
It's a regular,
buying stuff. There is room for negotiating things, and especially if something sat on the floor for like a week, 2 weeks, we'll try to mark it down a little bit.
Yeah,
mark it down,
get it to move.
and then we'll get it to move. So
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about the reseller aspect of it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you, some of those people have unbelievable talent. You look at something, you're like, that just looks like an old piece of junk, and then you see it after they're done with it, you're like, wow.
And it's a growing thing, you know. I mean, there's the concept of thrifting now with young kids.
Sure.
Is a huge
Yeah, yeah.
thing.
My younger kids, they're in Savers all the time and
Right.
buying stuff, and they'll come home and they're like, I got this $800 jacket for $20.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
And which is awesome.
Yeah.
People turning things around. They're buying things. They're making it new in their own way.
Yeah, yeah.
So which is awesome.
Yeah, no, there was one of my daughter's friends was going in and buying jeans and then putting holes in them and then reselling them.
Yeah. You know.
It was a perfectly good jeans,
Why
but
not?
they were making them, distress
Yes.
in such a way that was, hip right now.
Yeah.
And it was a good little side hustle.
That's great.
And they were selling them, I think, on eBay or Facebook Marketplace or both, I think.
Right.
So it's fascinating. It's like, gig economy that can come out of, these things. So you think about somebody bought that 40 years ago, it sat in the house for 40 years,
Right.
then you came, took it, moved it to the store, and then it goes and gets refurbished, and then it goes in someone else's house and stays there for another 30, 40 years.
That's wild.
And then maybe goes around again, right?
Hopefully, that'd be wild. You know.
It's pretty cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. And so what's the quickest way to get in touch with you? What does that look like? Email, phone calls? I mean, I know we're going to put your numbers up on the screen, but is a phone call the best? What what are your hours? How does that work? Is there an after hours number? You know, what does that look like?
Okay, so the phone call is always good. Our main line 781-308-4447. Website gooddeedscleanouts.com. And you can actually submit a contact request form on the website. And
Yeah, I think that's how I got in touch with you actually, because I couldn't, for whatever reason, I didn't have your direct line. I said I'll just send them an email.
that's usually the best and quickest way to get in touch.
Okay.
Because
So somebody's watching that.
as a small business manager, I wear many hats.
Sure.
So I was actually laboring with the guys earlier today. So I don't always get the chance to get to the phone.
Yeah.
You know, but email I check every day and respond.
Sure.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, this was fantastic. Any parting wisdom you want to give the crowd or the audience?
Man, I just first of all, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
This was it's funny. Like I was earlier in the week, I was talking to a friend of mine. And I was like, man, I listen to so many podcasts, and I've always wanted to be a guest on one. So thank you very much.
There you go.
You know?
Dream one fulfilled.
Yeah. So I love to talk. So here we go.
Yeah.
You know, as far as advice for customers, you know, if wherever they are in the process, if they need advice, you can call us and we can kind of like guide you through it.
Sure.
But some general tips, you know, it's the more organized you can be with something, the easier it's gonna be to determine how to move forward with it.
Sure.
You know, preparing things. Even if you yourself aren't the one that's going to do the work, if you need to hire people, usually the most organized and also the most time in advance. I get a lot of customers that call for last minute stuff.
Yeah.
Which is really challenging to book.
Sure. Especially when you have a lot of moving parts.
When there's a lot of moving parts. So those two things I think would be, you know, always think that things are going to take longer than you think.
Sure. Yeah, so the secret sauce then is call early.
Yeah.
You're willing to have a conversation with anybody about anything that has to do with it. Even if they're early in the process, you can coach them, say, hey, you're probably a little early. Let me come look in a couple months once you've sorted.
Right.
You know, what's your time frame? Get me involved. So the sooner you're involved, the better for all parties, because then you can coordinate your schedule. You can maybe have the person that does consignment, let's say you go and look, and there's a lot of really valuable things. Maybe that person from the consignment store is going to come down and say, yeah, these 5 pieces these are worth a lot of money. We need to bring these to consignment. So it just gives a lot more flexibility for you to do the right thing.
Right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, great having you on the show.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm sure I'll see you again. Hope to refer you some work.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it. All right.